I returned from my trip and walked into my bedroom, only to find my bed had vanished. My daughter-in-law appeared with a triumphant smile and announced, "We redecorated everything. This room is mine now." I maintained my composure, locked eyes with her, and responded calmly, "You want a space all to yourself? Perfect. You can start looking for a new house to live in today." Just like that, every trace of color drained from her face. When I pushed open the door to my house after 15 days away, the first sensation that hit me was wrongness. The air carried unfamiliar scents. Fresh paint mingled with expensive perfume that definitely wasn't mine. I abandoned my suitcase by the entrance and walked slowly down the hallway, my heart beginning to race as if my body sensed something my mind refused to acknowledge. My feet carried me straight to my bedroom. The door stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open with a trembling hand, and in that moment, my entire world ground to a halt. My bed had disappeared. That mahogany bed where I'd slept for 25 years, where I'd wept over my husband's death, where I'd sewn my children's clothes in the early morning hours. It had vanished completely. In its place stood a modern white bed adorned with decorative pillows that looked like they'd been plucked straight from a magazine spread. The walls I'd painted a soft peach color now bore a sterile light gray. My photographs, images from my wedding, pictures of my young children, shots of my husband with his warm, genuine smile, no longer hung on the walls. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. "Do you like how it turned out, mother-in-law?" The voice came from behind me, sweet as poison honey. I turned around slowly. There stood Valerie, my daughter-in-law, leaning casually against the doorframe with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She wore a tight wine-colored dress, her hair freshly styled at a salon, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked victorious. "What did you do?" My voice emerged weaker than I'd intended. "We redecorated. The house needed a change, something more modern, more functional." She walked closer and ran her hand along the gray wall with proprietorial confidence. "And well, this room is perfect for me. It has better light, more space. Robert and I needed it." My hand began to shake. I clenched them into fists to maintain control. "Where are my things? Where's my bed?" Valerie sighed, as if I were a child throwing an unreasonable tantrum. "In the garage. Everything's stored there safely. Don't worry." She paused and tilted her head with false concern. "We thought you could stay in the guest room. It's smaller, yes, but at your age, you don't need that much space, right? Besides, this way you won't have to climb stairs every day." Every word landed like a slap across my face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I refused to give her that satisfaction. I looked her straight in the eyes, those eyes that now gleamed with something I'd never seen before. Contempt. In that moment, I understood something that shattered my soul. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle, an old piece of furniture that needed to be relocated to make room for something better. I took a deep breath. "You want a space just for yourself?" I said with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. She smiled wider, certain she'd won. "Perfect," I continued. "Today you're going to start looking for a new house to live in." Her smile froze. The color drained from her face, as if someone had flipped a switch. She opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. "What did you say?" "You heard me, Valerie. If you need your own space so badly, get your own house. This one is mine." But what I didn't know in that moment, what I couldn't yet imagine, was that this confrontation was merely the beginning, because Valerie hadn't acted alone, and what I would discover in the coming days was going to destroy me in ways I couldn't even fathom. Because when you trust the people you love, you never expect them to stab you in the back, especially when those people are your own blood. Valerie stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. She released a nervous laugh, the kind that sounds artificial even to the person producing it. "Mother-in-law, you can't be serious. Kicking us out. But Robert is your son. This is his house, too. I bought this house," I said, my voice growing firmer. "I paid for it brick by brick with the sweat of my brow, and nobody asked my permission to touch my things." Just then, Robert appeared in the hallway. My son, the boy I'd carried in my womb, whom I'd raised alone after his father died, to whom I'd given everything I had and more. He stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed despite it being 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "What's going on?" "Why are you yelling?" he asked, scratching his head. "Your wife transformed my bedroom into hers," I said, feeling rage begin to crack through the calm facade I'd maintained. "Without asking me, without even telling me. Did you know?" Robert avoided my gaze. He stared at the floor exactly the way he used to when he was a boy and I'd caught him in a lie. "Mom, Valerie said it was a surprise, that we wanted to renovate the house to make it look better. I didn't think." "You didn't think?" I interrupted him. "Or you didn't want to think?" Valerie moved closer to him and took his arm in a gesture meant to appear protective, but struck me as possessive. "Robert, your mom is exaggerating. We just made some improvements. The house was so outdated, with ancient furniture. We did it for everyone's benefit." "For everyone's benefit," I repeated, feeling something hot rise in my chest. Where's the benefit for me in all of this? Robert finally looked at me. "Mom, calm down. It's not a big deal. We can fix up the guest room really nicely for you. We can even—" "I don't want you to fix anything for me." I cut him off. "I want my room. I want my things. I want to be respected in my own house." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Valerie squeezed Robert's arm tighter. "Mother-in-law, I think you're being a little selfish," she said, her tone changing now, becoming colder. "This house is big. It has 4 bedrooms. Why do you need the biggest one if you're alone? Robert and I need space. We're thinking about having a baby soon." "Then find a house for that baby," I said. Robert sighed in frustration. "Mom, don't be like that. Where are we supposed to go? We live here. This is our home." "Your home?" I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "And what about mine?" I needed to see my things. I needed to confirm with my own eyes that this wasn't some nightmare. I descended the stairs to the garage with Robert and Valerie following behind me. When I opened the door, the smell of dampness hit me in the face. There they were, my furniture, my antique wooden dresser that had belonged to my mother, my disassembled bed leaning against the wall, my boxes of belongings. I opened one with trembling hands and found my photographs thrown in carelessly, some with broken frames. The photo of my wedding with Louis, the glass shattered right over his smiling face. I felt something inside me break. "We stored them carefully," Valerie said from behind me, but her voice sounded hollow without conviction. I took the broken photograph in my hands. Louis looked at me from the past, young, happy, not knowing he would die just 12 years later, and leave me alone to raise our children. I clutched the frame to my chest. "I need to be alone," I murmured. "Mom." Robert tried to approach. I said I need to be alone. I shouted, and my voice echoed off the garage walls. They left. I heard them climb the stairs and close the door. I remained there, sitting on a cold garage floor, surrounded by my life packed in cardboard boxes, as if it were worthless. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Louis's funeral. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of sadness for an inevitable loss. They were tears of rage, of betrayal, of a pain so deep it made breathing difficult. Because it's one thing to lose someone to death. It's an entirely different thing for the living to erase you, to discard you, to treat you like you're in the way in your own home. That night, I attempted to sleep in the guest room. The bed was small, the mattress hard, and from there I could hear Valerie and Robert laughing in my bedroom. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard them making love. And I, the owner of that house, lay there in a room that smelled of disuse, staring at the ceiling, wondering what my life had transformed into this. But what they didn't know, what I still didn't realize, was that this humiliation was just the beginning. Because the next day, I was going to discover something that would force me to open my eyes once and for all. Something that would reveal that the redecoration of my room wasn't just a whimsical makeover. It was part of a plan they had been plotting for months. And I had been so blind, so trusting, that I didn't see the signs until it was too late. Or Maybe not too late after all. I couldn't sleep. The hours passed slowly, heavily, as I tossed and turned in that small bed that creaked with every movement. At 4 a.m, I gave up. I rose and went to the kitchen to make myself chamomile tea, the kind my mom used to prepare for me when I was a little girl and couldn't sleep. The house was silent. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock that Louis had given me for our 10th anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table, the warm mug in my hands, and memories washed over me like waves. I remembered when Louis and I were young, dreaming of having our own house. We lived in a rented 2-bedroom apartment downtown with walls, so thin we could hear everything the neighbors did. Louis worked as a mechanic, and I sold tamales in the mornings. We saved every dollar, every single dollar. I remember the day we found the land. It was an empty lot in a rough part of town, far from the city center, with no utilities. But it was the only thing we could afford. $20,000 that took us 8 years to save. When we signed the deed, Louis picked me up and spun me around in the middle of the dusty lot. "We're going to build our future here, my love," he told me. I was 32. He was 35. We never got to build it together. 2 years later, Louis died when a car ran a red light and hit him on his way to work. I was left alone with Robert, who was 15, and Lucy, who was 12. No money, still without our own house, but with a piece of land and a promise I'd made at his grave. Our children were going to have that home. I took 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I cooked in a diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then I cleaned offices from 4 to 9 at night. On weekends, I sold gelatin desserts and cakes at children's parties. I slept 4 hours a day. My hands became calloused. My back began to hurt constantly, but I kept saving. Robert would tell me, "Mom, rest. The house doesn't matter." But it did matter. To me, that house was more than bricks. It was proof that Louis's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. It was my way of honoring his memory. It was the stability my children deserved. It took me 15 years to save the $80,000 for construction. 15 years of watching other mothers attend school festivals while I worked. 15 years without buying new clothes for myself, without going to movies, without treating myself to anything. Everything, absolutely everything, went toward the house. When we finally finished building it, I was 49. I invited my children to see their home. Robert, already 30, came with Valerie. They'd been dating for 6 months. She walked in looking at everything with disinterest, as if it were just any old house. She didn't know. She couldn't know that every tile in the bathroom had cost me a double shift, that every window represented a month of not eating meat, that the spacious living room existed because I'd worn shoes with holes in them for 2 years. Lucy, however, cried. My daughter hugged me and whispered in my ear, "You did it, Mom. Dad would be so proud." Now, sitting in my kitchen at 4 a.m. at 67 years old and feeling every one of those years in my tired body, I wondered, what was it all for? To end up displaced in my own house? For my daughter-in-law to erase my history as if it were worthless? For my son to allow them to treat me this way? The tears fell again, silent, bitter. I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Robert. He came down in his boxers and a T-shirt, his eyes swollen with sleep. He was surprised to see me. "Mom, what are you doing up?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at him, tried to see in this 42-year-old man the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world. But that boy wasn't there anymore. "I can't sleep in that bed," I finally said. "My back hurts." Robert opened the fridge and took out water. He poured a glass and stood there, refusing to look at me. "Mom, I know you're upset, but do you know how much this house cost me, Robert?" He fell silent. "Do you know how many nights I worked without sleep so you could have a roof over your head? How many times I skipped meals so you could eat 3 times a day? Mom, don't start with that. No, son, I need you to understand." I stood up, feeling my knees protest. This house isn't just walls and a roof. It's my blood. It's my life. And you too are treating it like a piece of property you can just remodel whenever you feel like it. Robert put the glass down on the table with more force than necessary. "So, What do you want to do? Tell Valerie to undo everything? We already spent $15,000 on the remodeling, Mom. $15,000. I froze. What did you say? The paint, the furniture, the decorator, all of that costs money. And where did you get that money? Robert looked away. We have our savings. But something in his tone told me he was lying. I knew him too well. When he lied, he would scratch the back of his neck and avoid looking me in the eye, just like he was doing now. Robert, look at me. He didn't. Look at me. He raised his eyes, and in them I saw something that scared me. Guilt. Deep guilt. What did you do? I asked, feeling fear creep up my spine. Nothing, Mom. We just improved the house, that's all. Did you use my money? No. Then what? Silence. A silence that weighed a ton. Robert finished his water in one gulp and headed for the stairs. I'm going back to sleep. You're being paranoid. I was left alone in the kitchen again. But now fear had settled in my chest like a clenched fist, because I knew my son, and I knew when he was hiding something from me. Something big. The next day, I was going to start looking for answers. I was going to open drawers, check papers, ask questions. And what I was about to discover would break my heart into even smaller pieces. Because sometimes the greatest pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who swore to love you. And when that betrayal is revealed, the world is never the same again. For the next 3 days, I acted as if nothing had happened, as if I had accepted my new place in the hierarchy of my own house. I made breakfast. I cleaned. I smiled when I had to smile. But inside, every fiber of my being was on high alert, watching, listening. Valerie paraded around the house like a queen. She'd taken over not only my bedroom, but also my space in the kitchen. She moved my cast iron pans, the ones Lewis had given me, to the top cabinet where I could barely reach. She placed her expensive ceramic pots in the spot where mine had always been. Little victories she savored every time I had to ask for her help to retrieve something. Robert left for work early and came back late. An engineer at a construction company. He made good money, but it was never enough for his expenses. It had always been that way. He spent more than he earned. When he was young, I covered his small debts. He's young. He's learning, I told myself. Now he was 42 and still hadn't learned. On the third day, Valerie went out to the salon. I'm getting my hair done, mother-in-law. I'll be back in 3 hours, she announced while applying lipstick in front of the entryway mirror. My mirror, the one I bought at an antique market 20 years ago. Robert was at work. The house was empty, silent. It was my chance. I climbed the stairs slowly, holding my breath as if someone could hear me. I entered what had been my bedroom. The smell of Valerie's perfume saturated the air, making me nauseous, but I pressed forward. I opened the closet. All my clothes were gone. In their place, expensive dresses, designer shoes, purses that cost what I used to earn a month when I worked. I closed the closet and approached the desk. It was new, modern, made of glass. On it sat a closed laptop. I didn't touch it. I didn't know how to use those technological things. But I opened the drawers. Papers. Lots of papers. Invoices for furniture. $4,500 at a luxury decor store. Payment receipts to an interior designer. $3,000. Receipts for imported paint, for curtains, for a lamp that cost more than my first car. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A manila folder. Inside, documents printed from the internet. Pages about property possession rights through improvements. Legal articles highlighted in yellow. When a family member invests significant money in improvements to a property, they can claim rights to it, especially if there is prolonged cohabitation and the original owner is of advanced age. My hands started shaking so violently I almost dropped the papers. There were notes in the margins. Valerie's handwriting. Lawyer consultation. $500. Document all improvements. Before and after photos. I kept searching. Deeper in the drawer, I found an envelope. Inside were photocopies of documents, the deed to my house. But these copies had sticky notes attached to them. Changed to joint name. How much possession time is needed? My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. Valerie hadn't redecorated just for fun. She was building a case. She was documenting investments to claim rights to my house, the house that I'd built with 15 years of my sweat and tears. I took out my cell phone, an old one Lucy had given me, and took pictures of everything with trembling hands. I wasn't sure how the camera worked, but I pressed buttons until I heard the click. I put everything back exactly as it was and left the room. I descended to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, but couldn't swallow. The water stuck in my throat along with the knot of betrayal that kept growing and growing. I needed more information. I waited for night to fall. Robert came home at 9, exhausted. He went straight to shower. Valerie sat in the living room watching TV in my favorite armchair, eating popcorn that she dropped on the floor without picking it up. I went to bed early, or pretended to. At 11, I heard Valerie talking on the phone. Her voice drifted from the backyard. I rose without making a sound and went to the guest room window that overlooked the yard. The thin curtains allowed me to see without being seen. There she was, walking among my geranium pots. The cell phone pressed to her ear. "It's almost ours, Mom, I swear." Her voice sounded excited, triumphant. The old lady is confused. She says she's going to kick us out, but she can't. Robert is her son. This is his home, too. Silence while she listened to her mother on the other end. No, she doesn't know about the loan yet. Robert is scared of her. He's not going to tell her. She laughed. Imagine her face when she finds out we use the house as collateral. But by then, we'll have everything sorted out. My heart stopped. Loan. Collateral. Look, Mom, the plan is simple, Valerie continued. We keep investing in improvements. The more money we put in, the stronger our legal case. The lawyer said that if she tries to kick us out, we can countersue for the investments. And if she gets difficult, well, she's already 67. How much time does she have left? 5, 10 years max? After that, this house will be worth over $200,000 with all the work we've done. We'll sell it and buy something better in a nice neighborhood, just like you always wanted. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I made no sound. I bit my fist to keep from screaming. Robert is a fool, but he's easy to manipulate, Valerie went on. His mom has him so traumatized that he'll do anything not to disappoint her. But she doesn't manipulate me. I know what I want, and I'm going to get it. More silence than a laugh. Sharp, violent. Don't be dramatic, Mom. I'm just being smart. If she was stupid enough to let us live here for free all these years, that's her problem. We're just taking advantage of the opportunity. Free. She said free. As if for the 3 years they'd lived here, I hadn't cooked for them every day. As if I hadn't washed their clothes. As if I hadn't paid for the electricity, the water, the gas. As if I hadn't given Robert $5,000 when he needed the down payment for his car because his credit was rejected. I moved away from the window before I could hear any more. I returned to my small bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't just about taking over a room. It was a calculated, meticulous plan to take my house from me, to take the only thing I had left in this world. And Robert knew. My son knew, and hadn't said a word. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to be smart. I was going to plan. And when I struck back, it was going to hurt so much that they would never forget what it feels like to betray the person who gave you everything. But first, I needed help. And I knew exactly who to call. The next day, very early, I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. The phone rang 3 times before someone answered. Mom, are you okay? Lucy's voice sounded worried. I never called her so early. Honey, I said, and my voice broke despite my efforts to sound strong. I need you to come home. I need your help, and I need you to come now. Lucy arrived 2 days later. She couldn't come sooner. She had hearings scheduled at her law firm in a city a few states away, but she promised she'd come for the weekend. Those 2 days were the longest of my life. Valerie noticed that something had changed in me. I no longer smiled at her. I no longer pretended everything was fine. She watched me with suspicion, like a cat that senses a mouse is planning an escape. "Is everything okay, mother-in-law?" she asked me on Thursday morning as I was making breakfast. "Perfectly fine," I replied without looking at her. "You seem tense." "I'm fine." She put her coffee mug down on the counter with a loud thud. "Look, if you're still upset about the room, I think you're being very immature. It's time for you to get over it. Things change. You're getting older. You need to adapt." I turned to look at her. She wore a designer tracksuit that cost what I used to earn in a week selling tamales 20 years ago. Her hair was pulled up in a perfect ponytail. Her nails were freshly done. All paid for with money my son went into debt to give her. "You're right," I said with a calmness that surprised me. "Things change." She smiled, thinking she won again. She had no idea what was coming. On Friday night, Valerie delivered her news. "Mother-in-law, some friends are coming over for lunch tomorrow. We're going to be in the living room, and we need privacy. Can you stay in your room?" "Oh, and if you could make something tasty, we'd appreciate it. You know, your enchiladas are good. Make those." It wasn't a question. It was an order. Robert sat on the couch watching football on TV. He didn't say anything. He didn't even look at me. "What time?" I asked. "Around 1 in the afternoon. And please wear something presentable. Not that old robe you always wear." I barely slept that night. I knew Lucy would arrive in the morning. I knew I just needed to hold on a little longer. But I never imagined that before my daughter arrived, I would experience the greatest humiliation of my life. Saturday, 11 in the morning, I started making the enchiladas. Refried beans with the special touch my mother taught me. Freshly made tortillas, cream, crumbled fresh cheese. The aroma filled the house. At 12:30, the doorbell rang. Valerie ran to open it. 4 women her age entered, all dressed up, perfumed, laughing loudly. They brought bottles of wine and bags from an expensive boutique. "Welcome to my house," Valerie said, emphasizing the "my" while glancing at me. They settled in the living room. I served the enchiladas on the breakfast bar, thinking they'd come get them, but Valerie came into the kitchen and gestured with her hand. "Mother-in-law, bring them to the living room, and bring us the wine, too." I froze. "What?" "Serve us in the living room. We don't want to get up." I took a deep breath. I carried the tray with the plates and went out. Valerie's friends looked at me with curiosity. "Oh, that looks delicious," said one of them, a blonde woman wearing sunglasses indoors. I served the plates. I went to get the wine. When I returned with a bottle and glasses, Valerie was shepherding her friends upstairs. "Come on, I'll show you how it turned out. It's beautiful." The 5 of them ascended. I remained downstairs, feeling my stomach churn. I could hear their voices and laughter from the second floor. "It's gorgeous, Val." "And this was your mother-in-law's room?" "Yeah, but you know how older ladies are. Everything old and depressing. We did her a favor by moving her to a smaller room." Laughter. They descended after 10 minutes. They sat down to eat. I stayed in the kitchen cleaning, trying to become invisible. But then I heard Valerie's voice. "Mother-in-law, can you bring us more napkins?" I emerged with the napkins. When I placed them on the table, one of the friends, a brunette with huge earrings, looked at me with a condescending smile. "And you're Robert's mom?" "Yes." "Oh, how convenient to have live-in help. Right, Val?" she said to Valerie with a knowing nudge. My blood ran cold. "Very convenient," Valerie replied between laughs. "Although sometimes you have to tell her how to do things. You know, the older generation had different standards." The laughter grew louder. Another friend, a redhead with long, decorated nails, looked directly at me. "And do they pay you? I mean, for cooking and cleaning?" The silence that followed was deafening. Valerie took a sip of wine, savoring every second. "No, but we give her room and board. That's enough, isn't it? Besides, she's family. Family helps each other out." The laughter exploded. I just stood there, my cheeks burning, feeling each laugh like a slap. They saw me as the maid, as free labor in my own house. "Mother-in-law, can you clear these plates?" "We're done." My hands shook as I collected the plates. One slipped, but I caught it before it fell. More laughter. Careful now. I returned to the kitchen. I placed the plates in the sink. And there, standing in front of the window where the midday sun streamed in, something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was silent, like when glass cracks, a fine fracture that changes everything. I leaned on the sink, closing my eyes, breathing deeply. The tears wanted to come, but I didn't allow them. I wasn't going to cry. Not anymore. At that moment, I heard a voice behind me. Mom. I turned around. Lucy stood in the kitchen doorway. I hadn't heard her arrive. She had her small suitcase, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. But what I noticed most were her eyes filled with tears of rage. How long have you been here? I whispered, long enough to hear everything. Her voice trembled, long enough to understand what's happening in this house. More laughter drifted from the living room. Valerie was telling some story, her voice loud and confident. Lucy dropped her suitcase on the floor and came toward me. She hugged me tight, and in that embrace, I allowed myself for a second to be fragile, to be the mother who needed her daughter's comfort. No more, Mom, she whispered in my ear. This ends today. She pulled away, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and on her face I saw the same determination I'd had when I was young and decided to build this house against all odds. Where's Robert? She asked. He went out, said he'd be back tonight. Perfect. Then let's get to work. You and I, like it always should have been. What are you going to do? Lucy took my hands, her lawyer's hands, soft but firm. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. Protect you, defend what's yours, and teach that woman that she can't steal your life. Lucy, she has papers, plans, and I have the law on my side, and I have something she'll never have. What's that? The truth, she said, squeezing my hands. Now give me your phone. I need to see those pictures you told me about. And then we're going to review every document for this house, every paper, every receipt. We're going to build a case so solid that when we're done, Valerie will wish she'd never set foot in this house. From the living room, Valerie's voice shouted, Mother-in-law, more wine. Lucy looked at me. I looked back at her, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a happy smile, a war smile. You go, I told Lucy. Introduce yourself. I want to see her face when she realizes I'm not alone anymore. My daughter walked out of the kitchen with firm steps. I followed a few feet behind. Valerie was pouring more wine when she saw Lucy. Her smile froze. Lucy, what a surprise. Hello, Valerie, my daughter said, her voice as cold as ice. I came to spend a few days with my mom. Hope you don't mind me using my old room. Oh, wait, that's right. It's yours now, isn't it? The silence in the living room was absolute. Valerie's friends looked between us, not understanding what was happening. Valerie tried to regain control. Of course, no problem. You can stay in the other guest room. Don't worry. I'm already settled in the room with Mom, Lucy said with a smile that wasn't kind. We have a lot to talk about. Legal matters about property, inheritance, that kind of thing. Right, Mom? All eyes turned to me. That's right, honey, I said, and my voice emerged firmer than it had in days. A lot of things to review. I saw the color drain from Valerie's face, and I knew she understood. She knew her game was over, that the naive, manipulable mother-in-law she thought she could strip of everything had just called in reinforcements. And these reinforcements weren't going to play nice. Valerie's friends left half an hour later. The atmosphere had become awkward, tense, like when everyone knows a storm is about to break, but no one wants to be the first to mention it. Valerie saw them off at the door with fake kisses and promises to see them soon, but I could see her hands trembling as she closed the door. Lucy and I sat at the dining room table. My daughter had taken out her laptop, a slim silver one that gleamed under the light, and had spread papers all over the table. I'd given her my phone with the pictures I'd taken from Valerie's desk. This is serious, Mom, Lucy said as she reviewed the images, enlarging them with her fingers on the screen. Very serious. Valerie walked into the room. She removed her heels and walked barefoot, trying to look casual, but I noticed her eyes kept darting to the papers on the table. "What are you two doing?" Lucy looked up. "Reviewing documents. Mom's legal affairs. Don't worry about it.